critical thinking is at the demand for it, the need for it rather, not really demand. The need for it is at an all-time high, while the supply of it is at an all-time low. So, interesting thing happens every election cycle. What I do is I'll do 2 videos, either as a live stream or as an episode of my masterclass / podcast, or sometimes both. This year I did both, where I argue why the Democrat candidate is going to win the election, and then I do another one the next day, why the Republican candidate is going to win the election. And every year it happens the same way. People see it when it comes out, but then after the election is decided and we know who won and who lost, a bunch of people come leaving comments on the one of the loser, the one where I said the person who's going to win, actually they lost. And they'll leave comments like, "LOL, you were wrong, this aged poorly, etc., etc." Even though I say right there in the video, it's literally said in the video, that I'm doing 2 parts here. I'm just arguing one side in this video, and then in the other video I'm going to argue the other side. That's possible. Some people simply don't listen. They just come to the video, leave a comment, and leave. That's possible. But I think what actually happens is most people just don't think. And this is the challenge that we have in society these days. And actually, it's not even these days. This has always been a thing. Earl Nightingale, he's one of the forefathers of what we call personal development. He spoke about it on his tape that he did called The Strangest Secret. You can find this tape online these days. Wherever you're watching this, you can find The Strangest Secret. It's about 36 minutes long. And in it, Earl is just explaining that people tend to become what they think about. And the main reason many people don't become anything in life is because they don't think. And he was just saying people just don't think, period. He didn't even say what kind of thinking. I'm talking about critical thinking, which is a higher level than just regular thinking. But most people don't think at all, let alone do they think critically. They just take whatever they hear, accept it, believe it, repeat it, and then live their lives based on things that they have heard that they accept as quote-unquote information or quote-unquote facts that are not actually information or facts. They're often lies and innuendos and basically things that are appealing to your emotions but are not logically sound or in any way truthfully proven or factually proven. And by the way, there's no such thing as misinformation. These days people talk about that. I've seen a lot of that. Actually, I'll get to that right now. Is that after Donald Trump won the 2024 election, or it was announced that he won the election, a bunch of liberal-leaning influencers, media people, newscasters, reporters, etc., people who are on the left side, whether they were actually fans of Kamala Harris, and she ain't got too many fans, so they weren't really fans of her. What they were either lifelong Democrats, Democrats by paycheck, meaning they work for the Democrats, so they had to pretend like they are supporters of whoever the Democrats put in front of them, or they're just anti-Trumpers. That's basically, most people are not fans of Kamala Harris, so you're either one of those 3. You've just been a Democrat your whole life, so whoever's up there you support, or you're getting paid to support the Democrats, so you're doing that, and then the Democrats spent a lot of money, $1 billion on influencers and advertising and media during the losing 2024 campaign. So good money to be gotten for those of you who got it. Congrats. Or you just hate Donald Trump. All right. There are more people in all 3 of those groups than there are people who actually like Kamala Harris, genuinely liked Kamala Harris. But I've heard a lot of these people saying, well, the main reason it must be, because they've been grasping at straws ever since the loss was announced. I'm recording this on Saturday after the election was on Tuesday. So since then, they've just been grasping at anything and everything they can come up with for explaining away why it happened, because they're dealing with cognitive dissonance, which simply means your experience of life is in conflict with the way you think life is supposed to be or was going to go, etc. There's this conflict between these things that you have in your head and what you're actually seeing with your eyes. And when most people experience cognitive dissonance, they usually change one of the variables that are in conflict just to make sure everything stays in place. So, for example, when people said there's no way Donald Trump can win because of, and y'all know the laundry list of all negative things said about him, there's no way he can win because of all these negative things, and then he ends up winning, well, there's cognitive dissonance because you just said there's no way he can win, but he won. So what they have to do is come up with a story in their minds that explains how their experience of reality could be in such stark contrast to what they believed to be true. And this cognitive dissonance gets even stronger when the person experiencing it thinks that they're really smart. And the challenge with this, especially in the world that we live in today, is that a lot of people who call themselves highly informed, or another word they use is educated, or people will throw around terms like, hey, you should do some more research. If they disagree with something that you say, they'll say some passive aggressive thing like, well, you should do some more research on this topic because obviously you don't know as much as I do. You're not educated enough. You're not informed enough. You're misinformed, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of these people are, college educated, often sometimes with advanced degrees. So all of their ego is baked into what they have allegedly achieved academically. And academic system in America is more about indoctrination and actual education anyway. So they're not really educated. Going to college does not make you educated. Having a degree does not make you educated. And just in case any of you was thinking of saying this as a retort to that, I have a college degree. So I'm saying it even as someone who holds a college degree. What makes me intelligent and what makes me educated and informed has nothing to do with anything that happened in the 4 years that I was in college. Nothing whatsoever. And I'm saying all that to say this, is that when these people experience the cognitive dissonance, all they did was start crafting different stories. What they should have done, if they were critical thinkers, is say the same thing that I said when I didn't think there was any way Trump could win in 2016 and he won. I was experiencing the cognitive dissonance for like a couple hours because I didn't even stay up to see what happened. When I saw that he won, I was thinking to myself the same thing these people were thinking now. There's no way he can win because of all these negative things that have been said about him and that people have been indoctrinated to believe about him. So when he won, to cure that cognitive dissonance, here's what I said. I said, well, obviously, I had the wrong information. Obviously, I must have only been listening to a small percentage of the story. There has to be more to the story than this because the story that I have said there's no way this can happen. Therefore, I must be missing some of the story. Let me go find out the rest of the story. Let me go find out what people who actually liked him and were fans and supporters of him, let me find out what they had to say. So I went and found out what they had to say, and that's when I started taking what many of you may call the red pill. The red pill is when you start taking in information that might fly in the face of what you have previously believed to learn that, oh, okay, I had this way of seeing things, but things are actually a different way. I'm trying to get into my dry cleaners and got this thing blocked off. I guess I got to go a different way. So anyway, I started getting new information so I could challenge my way of thinking because I had a certain way of thinking that was kind of set in stone, and I realized I had to change my way of thinking and get some new sources of information to find out, all right, why is this conflict existing in my mind between what I saw and what I thought. And that's when I, again, started to take the red pill. The challenge is people who are anti-Trumpers, they are not interested in taking the red pill because they are convinced that they are too smart to have been fooled. This is the problem that these people have. They are convinced that there's no way anybody could still support Donald Trump based on the quote-unquote facts and information that they have. Anyone who happens to disagree with them must just be a complete fool. And this is the kind of stuff they've been throwing out there. Oh, well, the only reason Trump won is because America hates women, or America still hates people of color because Kamala Harris is not black, or they would say black, but let's just say people of color for the sake of argument in this particular context. Or people are just uneducated. See, all the people who voted for Trump, all the uneducated people voted for Trump, and all the educated people voted for Harris. So obviously, if you're smart, you voted for Harris, and if you're dumb, you did the wrong thing and you voted for Trump. And if you're smart, you did the right thing, you voted for Harris. Of course, that must explain the discrepancy between reality and, again, what people predicted was going to happen. All of this is complete nonsense, all of it bullshit. And what's another one that they said? Oh, well, these people, obviously, America no longer cares about voting for a convicted abuser, voting for someone who is a convicted felon, of someone who's bankrupt, someone who tried to overthrow the government, someone who's going to be a dictator on day one. Obviously, America no longer cares about holding people to these moral standards. So this is what we call moralizing. Moralizing is when you wag your finger at another person because you believe that they are just not a good person because of something that you either believe about them, know about them factually, or something that they did, etc., etc. This is what a lot of people have resorted to, is the moralizing. The challenge of moralizing is that it gets flipped back around on you just as quickly as you use it on other people. And the problem with that is there's no human who is qualified to moralize against any other human, because there's no human, any of you who's an adult over the age of 18, none of you have lived your life completely devoid of sin. Therefore, you are unqualified to moralize against another human being. Doesn't mean that somebody else out there couldn't have done more bad or more sin than you have done. But if you've done any, then you are unqualified to judge another person for the fact that they did something. All right, that's what I'm saying. And this is the problem that a lot of people on the anti-Trump side, we'll just call them anti-Trumps, and some of them are Democrats, some of them are left, and many of them are they just hate Trump. It doesn't even matter. They're not even on the side politically. Just as long as it's against Donald Trump, they're okay with it. And all of these people have a lot of egg on their faces right now because many of them have exposed themselves as not being critical thinkers. They don't have critical thinking skills. And they could, if they wanted to. The challenge with acquiring critical thinking skills is it first requires you to be humble. It requires you to have the humility to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe the way that I have been thinking and the way that I thought things were might not be true. Maybe what I thought life was like, life is actually not like this. Maybe how I thought everybody else is supposed to think, maybe that's not the way other people think. Maybe my way of thinking is not the quote unquote right way, and maybe there's a different way of thinking for being successful out here, and maybe I shouldn't just keep hoping that everybody else adjusts to how I think. Maybe I need to adjust to how the rest of the world is and how everybody else thinks. See, a critical thinker has the humility to have that conversation with themselves. But a person who thinks that they are intellectually superior and morally superior to everyone else around them will never have that kind of conversation with themselves, because again, as I saw people saying, that all the educated quote unquote people voted for Kamala and all the uneducated people voted for Trump. See, this is the problem that they have. All right, they actually think they're smarter than everybody. They think they're morally superior to everyone else. Therefore, they will never critically think. Because one of the keys of critical thinking is you question yourself. One of the keys of this guy's walking across the street, looking down at his phone while he's walking across against a red light, and a car is coming while he's walking across the street. The car was nice enough to not hit him. That's him right there. Right? He's coming. See him right there? See him looking at his phone? He was looking at his phone while he's walking across the street on a red light, and the car could have just hit him and killed his ass. So all of y'all need to watch out for that. I might do a video just on that. Back to my point. The reason why critical thinking, the need for it is very high. There's not a lot of demand for it because not a lot of people are asking about it, because not a lot of people understand the concept. But whenever you find yourself facing a reality that is in stark conflict with how you thought things were, this is especially important for those of you who think you're really smart. Those of you who think you're really clairvoyant and you're really observant and you really just know things and understand things and you have a lot of education and information and intellect, especially for those of you who think you're smart. Anytime you're facing a conflict between what you thought and what happens, you need to think critically. First step in thinking critically is accepting and opening yourself to the possibility that how you think may not be accurate. It's not even about it being right or wrong. Because right or wrong is a matter of opinion. Accuracy is something that can be measured. You can measure accuracy against the desired outcome. So if you are a Kamala Harris supporter and you were convinced that she was going to win and Trump ends up winning, then you have to question the accuracy of your thinking, because your thinking obviously was inaccurate. She didn't win. So what that means is thinking critically would mean you have to ask yourself, okay, what mental model was I working with that led to me coming up with such a grossly inaccurate prediction of how things are going to go? And again, the reason why this is important is because if you think you're smart, clairvoyant, observant, intellectual, and informed, and then you end up being wrong anyway, well, now you got to question all those things too. And you see how this can be a challenge? This is the reason why critical thinking is at an all-time low. This is the reason why a lot of people don't want to think critically, because thinking critically means challenging the ego of your intellect. Now, some of you are intellectually humble, meaning you don't think you're smarter than everybody, you don't think you're better than everyone, you're not a moralizer, so it doesn't bother you to challenge your own intellect. But there are a lot of people out there, and some of you know some of these people. I know a whole bunch of these people. I come across a lot of them online every day, even though I don't know them personally. But they're people who I know personally who fit into this category. They are intellectually highly egotistical. And one of the reasons is because their entire being is centered around being smart/smarter than everybody else. So challenging their ideas and challenging their beliefs and challenging their knowledge because reality is in conflict with it is generally an exercise in futility, not because they're going to argue back against you, but simply because they're either going to resort to emotion, which is to defend their ego, or they will just not allow themselves to engage with you by either ignoring you, blocking you on social media, etc. And again, I've come across a lot of people who do this, people who allegedly are smart. They're so smart that they can't even engage in a healthy conversation with someone who is challenging the things that they believe, or they are even egotistical enough to go as far as to assert as truth, even when it's been proven as not true. So I'm saying all that to help any of you who might be guilty of this check yourself. I probably will not be successful with most of you who may actually be guilty of it, because again, I just told you, when they get challenged in this way, what these people usually do is find a way to exit such a conversation and stay in circles in which they will be validated and affirmed, because their entire being, their entire ethos is based around, I'm too smart to be wrong. I'm too morally upstanding to have anyone who is supposed to be a bad person get something right when I decreed that they're going to get it wrong. Right? These people can't accept it. So I'm making this video as a Hail Mary, as a shot in the dark, that maybe one of you who is guilty of this might be open-minded enough to challenge your own thinking. I'm probably wrong, but I'll put it out there because who knows? Maybe 10, 20, 50 years from now, somebody will come across this video and say, damn, Dre had it right back in 2024. I'm glad I came across this guy's video. That's why I'm making this video. Not necessarily because it's going to change any minds today, but maybe it will. Maybe I'll get lucky. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work with me directly. Ham is your direct coach. We do this all the time, every day. I help people break down their thinking. Thinking leads to actions, actions to outcomes, outcomes to rewards, the results, all the things you want in your life. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com.